So you guys called me and I was like, I'm going to go interview. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to go interview. And then they were like, I'm going to interview with you. And I'm like, fuck me. What do you mean I'm going to go interview with Norman Van Aken? So I walk in this room and it was the office. I was on the second floor.
Yep.
And I was so like, I'm usually pretty cool under pressure, but I was cracking hard. And you asked me, though, just the very simple questions. So what do you think about food? And I'm just like, I fucking love food. And I'm like, oh, man. And then the guy in the other room, which was one of the sous chefs at Norman's at the time, laughs because it was such a simple answer. But now that I look back on that moment, it's still the same. Like, I was very true in that moment, and I think that you saw that. And for the rest of the interview, I was pretty much in shambles. But I guess you liked me because you hired me. And, that was like the beginning of a very incredible journey that had a lot of ups and downs. And that was the first time I had ever met you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to fast forward to, I think, what was maybe 3 years after that. Maybe 4, I don't know. I was at Norman's 180. And then from Norman's, I left. Things happened. And we all left there. And I had gone to the local. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember this time. And we had still been in somewhat communication. We would email back and forth, whatever. And I was, that was probably one of the top 3 lowest points of my life.
Right? Top 3 lowest? Okay.
Yeah, lowest. And it had nothing to do with the local. It was a nice place. Bottom 3, though. Bottom 3 points of my life. And it was a very trying time for me. And you had reached out to me, and you were like, we're going to open Tuyo. Would you like to be a part of the opening team? And me, like a little arrogant fuck, I was like, no, I'm good. Because I was so in my own world and so just inundated by drugs and alcohol and stuff. Just all the stuff that's bad about our industry, right? So anyways, fast forward, I think 6 or 7 months after that email, my time at the local ended very poorly. I was let go for reasons that we can't share publicly. But anyways, I was on the street for I was living somewhere, but in a very bad place. So I reached out to you and, I asked if you were willing to meet. And Tuyo had already opened at the time. Matt Hawkins, which is the chef de cuisine at Ariette now, and Gio Fesser, which is the Pastelito Papi and one of my best friends in the whole world, worked at Tuyo at the time. And I was like, yeah. And you said yes, which I was shocked that you said yes. So this was maybe 3 days after everything happened at the local. And, my world was burning and falling apart. And I was in it was a 2-day bender. Things were bad. And I walked into what was your office in the back. Mm-hmm. And Jeffrey was there, but he did not stay. And you just looked at me and you said, are you okay? And I responded, no, I'm not. And we talked a little bit and you said to me, I don't necessarily have a position for you, but I will hire you. And that changed the rest of my life forever. 150%. You did not need to hire me. You did not need to help me at that point, and you did. So all I could say is thank you for that.
I can see you sitting in the chair. It was by that table that was supposed to be a big prep table, but it ended up being a kind of an ad hoc office for us because there was no other office, and you had this coat on and you've been driving for 24 hours.
It's close to it, yeah.
And you were beat up, and the world had given you a serious whipping.
Sure.
Yeah. But I remembered your work, and I remembered the promise that I saw within you. And so I wanted success. I've always wanted success. And the only way you get success is to build a team. I am a member of a team. I happen to be, typically, I'm often the quarterback of the team. But I would get nowhere if it weren't for the linemen, it weren't for everybody else,
Right.
Weren't for the fans. So I knew you were.
We need the fans.
We need the fans.
We need the fans.
They pay for everything.
Yes.
But you had and have, that intrinsic quality, that ineffable quality of caring so deeply. Yeah, your answer was true, Michael. You love fucking food. You didn't need to say it any fancier than that, really. I could see it in your, like a method actor looks for truth. You were telling me the truth with your heart. And I appreciate that. When you say you applied for the job 10 times, somebody else applied for a job 10 times with me. Charlie Trotter. He was front of the house, busboy, in a restaurant that I, for reasons I don't even understand, won the job as the head chef in 1982. And he came in to the kitchen and said, I know I'm a busboy, but I want to work in the kitchen. And I basically said, we don't have anything. We don't, he hadn't worked with me. I didn't know anything about him. He was very thin, very pale.
Right.
Couldn't really look me in the eye at the time. And my sous chef, wonderful, amazingly talented, Carrie Nahabedian from Chicago, said, hey, let's start him in garde manger. I'll keep an eye on him. I said, okay, he's your project. You keep an eye on him. And a year later, we were communicating like you and I have been able to communicate, which is like about anything, music, books, cup of coffee, the industry, what it means, how does it mean to grow up with the bad shit that's part and parcel of the industry as well.
Right.
And of course, I think the commonality of our language so much had to do with the shared love of Latin flavors, Cuban, Caribbean, Miami, all of that, and you had it in your DNA. You grew up with it. You had the vernacular for it that, and you had, very key, you had the appreciation for it. It astonishes me, Mike, how people can live in this town or in this region of Florida and cook food as if they're cooking in New York, Chicago, California,
right.
Kansas, East Jesus, Ireland. I don't know, but they don't seem to grasp that this is the most spectacular place to be a cook. And I say a cook, I mean the working part of what we do.
Absolutely.